Okay, now we're back for season 2, Leftovers. 6 years later, a Leftovers chat. I'm Ethan. I've seen the show many, many, many times. This is Benji. He has not seen the show, except to do this review and recap. Say hi, Benji.
Hey.
So we just finished season 1, and let's just dive into season 2. We start off with a new opening song and new titles. And did you have any first impressions of those?
Yeah, it's a good song, and it's a good enough opening sequence. When you kind of look at it and put it on its own, sort of, isolate it and look at it, you say, hey, yeah, it's a worthy intro for the show. It's pretty solid. But for me, I was just kind of missing the really beautiful intro we've got used to in season 1. So it was more the absence of that intro than any kind of fault on the part of this one. Although I did see him, I mentioned this at the time, some of the fonts felt a little bit flashy, a little bit in your face. And we've been so used to that kind of classy, reserved, understated font choice in the old intro that this one's a little bit like bam, boom, here, there, everywhere, new fonts, in your face. Which was a little weird, but I don't know. Maybe, when we get to the point where we're analyzing the font choices in the intro song of the show, maybe we're a level too deep.
I think we're exactly where we need to be. We got the stars and the words leftovers. You also have the stars and the pictures of the people, obviously, that represent missing people. The song is definitely a change from the first season. And everything is almost the opposite of what it was, right? So yeah, let's get into it. I think you'll grow to like the song as much as you like the first seasons by the end. You know what I mean? So we have season 2, episode 1, Axis Mundi. I did look up what Axis Mundi meant on Wikipedia. I can't tell, but I can't really tell from what they say because I don't understand words good. But Axis Mundi in astronomy, Axis Mundi is the Latin term for the Earth axis in the geocentric coordinate system. This is the axis of rotation of the celestial sphere. Consequently, in ancient Greco-Roman astrology, the Axis Mundi is the axis of rotation of the planetary spheres of the classical geocentric model of the cosmos. So that means, I don't know. It might have something to do with later on maybe the earthquakes that bridge the opening and closing of the show. But let's get right into it. We have a prologue. In prehistoric times, a pregnant cave woman gets up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. A bird shrieks and there's an earthquake. Her cave has collapsed and she is alone. We see her give birth, feed and protect her child until the rattlesnake bites her. After her struggle for life, a woman from another tribe takes her baby from her dead arms, and then a shot from the water pans over with some old school leftovers music to modern day. So before we get into what's going on with the girls at the lake, what did you think of this kind of out of nowhere prologue we got?
Well, I like out of nowhere prologues a lot. One of my favorite scenes in all of television ever is the Lost season 2 episode 1, where we've just ended season 1 with the hatch being opened, and we don't know what's going on. And then season 2 starts with this really kind of weird, seemingly out of place montage of a guy going about his daily routine to the song "Make Your Own Music," make your own kind of music, and then it is by the end of this little scene, it kind of pans away from him, zooms out, and goes down a corridor and then up a ladder inside a tunnel. I hope I'm doing this scene justice. And right at the top, we see that it's actually on the island, and this guy has been in the hatch. And that was like, whoa! It kind of blew my mind. It was so crazy. You were like, okay, how are they gonna try and explain this and make it make sense and kind of reconcile these two colliding worlds? And obviously, that's another Lindelof show. So yeah, season 2 starting with a prologue that's kind of out there and we don't really know how it connects. It's been done before, and I enjoyed it last time, and I enjoyed it again.
Hopefully later on you can say in your accent, "You'll see me in another life, brother." But we'll get there. That's a good. That's actually a good analogy for the beginning of the show. I didn't ever put that together. I like that.
Yeah, and I should mention. I don't want to get bogged down in this, but you mentioned that we kind of cut to the modern age. I didn't know if this prologue we see takes place in the past before the events of the show, or kind of in the future after this season, or the whole show, or, well, I'd imagine it'd be this season. So yeah, I didn't know, because it looked at this, it sort of had this quality where it could be either very old and that's why they're living like they are, or it's a lot further into the future and it's some kind of post-apocalyptic huge change in society. But it didn't completely rule out either of those two. So I'm still kind of open on the possibilities there.
So we pan over and almost to the same creek. It looks like it's the same one. In present day, there are 3 girls laughing and playing in the water. One of the girls, Evie, talks to a doctor collecting water samples. She is flirting with him a little bit. He continues to take samples. And there's signs on the water that say residents only, visitors prohibited. And there's a large sign warning that no water is to be removed. Before the girls get in their car, Evie grabs some water in a bottle. They bid farewell to the doctor and they head off.
So are both of them breaking the rules then? If the doctor's removing it for testing and Evie's just taking it for whatever reason, are they both breaking that rule, or is the doctor like a resident?
Well, I think we find out later that Evie is definitely a resident.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know what the doctor is, but it seems like residents or not, you're not supposed to take the water even if you are a resident.
Mm.
So there's rules being broken all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, Evie's brother, waits on the porch for her to get back with the water. We are now meeting the Murphys, John, Erika, Michael, and Evie. Michael is placing the water in big test tubes, and the family tries to wake their father, John, up by stacking things on his body. The items fall, and he wakes up. At the breakfast table, we continue to get the story of the family through the little interactions. There's a cricket that the family seems to take joy in torturing John about finding. Right? So it's vignettes. It's just like a nice portrait of how this family is at home. They take joy in tormenting the father, as families do. I can attest to that. On both sides, I have been tortured, and I have done the torturing. It's always fun. And John's got this weird thing with bacon. You know what I mean? He likes bacon. The family likes bacon. He doesn't want anyone to eat the bacon. It's just a nice little sketch of what's going on.
I mean, is that so weird? I feel like most
No,
people...
it's not weird. It's just like, it's little personality ticks, and we're back into this world.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a slice of life in a way that we're not used to. Because most of our slice of life shots seen so far in The Leftovers have been pretty intense, depressing scenes, whereas this one seems to be pretty normal.
Yeah, and we're going to find out that it's not pretty soon. So Michael bicycles to town past a cracked street with a clear box protecting it and a woman in a bridal dress watering her garden. I took note of those things when I first watched the show. They're just pretty weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that as well.
Once in town, Michael delivers food to a man who is in a tower at the center of town. The man gives Michael a letter to mail to a man named David Burton in Australia. Then he goes to set up his vendor area where the townspeople sell maps, shirts that read Miracle, Texas, population 9,261, departure 0, and various other oddities from the town. There seemed to be a small aftershock-type earthquake, and an elderly man says, "Effing frackers, at least it adds to our mystique." A bus arrives, and tourists come off, and they devour any and everything having to do with Miracle. They are praying and crying. Michael is not selling his water, but asking for a church donation. He makes it clear his water is just a souvenir. So before we move on to what we see John do, this whole town section where the tourists come off, did you have any thoughts when we came here?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I had some thoughts, but they were slightly, well, I'd kind of gathered what this place was a little bit ahead of time. So I was looking at these scenes through a different lens. I know we'd mentioned, maybe it was like the first podcast or second, and I was talking about the numbers and like 2% of the population. Is that just like a set kind of pattern, like 1 out of every 50, and it's all like a standard, and it's kind of abiding by rules? And you said no, it's random, and you also said you dropped a little hint that maybe we'll at one point see a town where they didn't lose anybody. So I had that in the back of my mind, and I was like, well, you know, if there's a town where they didn't lose anybody, realistically, it's going to be this one, from what we've seen of it. So yeah, so when I was watching this, I'd sort of skipped ahead to that conclusion, so that was making me view these events a little bit differently. So I did think it was interesting how the theme of like consumerism and commercializing, you know, people complain about America commercializing Christmas, Easter, anything it can commercialize, it seems to be doing. And here we see the departure, the one event you would think they wouldn't find a way to commercialize. It's as commercial as any kind of other event you could name. They're handing out like visitor guides, there's bus rides and special water they can buy. So that was how I was viewing it, as a comment on that.
Okay, so I want to address all that, but I want to read these 2 sections first because they address everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see John Murphy visit the house of a childhood friend named Isaac who is selling palm print readings for $140 each. Under the cover of asking about the fire code violations, John insists on getting a reading from Isaac. Under duress, Isaac does the reading and lets John know that it's his birthday soon, and that after some hesitation tells John that something bad is going to happen. John insists that Isaac admit what he's doing is fake. Isaac insists it is real. John pays and leaves. So that's one section of what you talked about. I'm going to read this other part, and then we'll talk about them both. Then we are treated to a rousing rendition of the Miracle Song, which I'll read you the lyrics right now. Broken hearts and shattered lives like wreckage on the ground, the memories of those poor souls who were lost but never found. They shook their fist and cursed the sky, demanding explanation. No answers came, no soothing words, just silence and frustration. But in Jarden town, the sun shone bright, a miracle. A light of love poured down, it's a miracle. Our hearts are pure, we knew for sure, a miracle that God had spared our town. So we are in Jarden, Texas, okay? Jarden, Texas had no departures from it. Soon after, and you're going to find all this out, and I don't think it's a spoiler, because this is kind of the stuff that we learned in the promotional materials for season 2. So the United States, once they found out that this place didn't have any departures, they made a national park in the town called Miracle National Park. So Miracle National Park is in Jarden, Texas.
Oh, okay. So that was what was confusing me. I didn't know if the town itself was called Miracle, but then I kept hearing that, like, did you say Jarden?
Jarden.
Yeah, I kept hearing that as well, and I was like, you know, that was confusing me. I'm not an expert on text and geography, and I didn't know if Miracle was the name of the town and like they'd named it that after the event, or if it was already named Miracle and that was why it was such a crazy coincidence or something.
It's very much a dreidel situation. I don't know if you know about Hanukkah. You have dreidels and they have characters, Hebrew characters, and they say a great miracle happened there, a great miracle happened here, depending on where you are. So they take it a step further than the Israelites. Instead of just playing with spinning tops, They've put almost a fence around it, and have made it a place for people to come. And people think it has special properties now, right? So what we have is someone like Isaac who is reading palm prints. He was able to get John's birthday, but then again, he's known John for forever.
Yeah, childhood friends, right?
Well, I don't know if they're friends.
Well, he's known him since the third grade, right?
Right. This is a bit of commercialization. Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't seem to me like certain people were actually, people are just trying to make the living the best way they can. A guy was selling shirts. A guy was selling tobacco. I didn't see any major, McDonald's brings to you the Miracle Burger or anything like that. And Michael makes it very clear that he doesn't know if there's anything special, but if people want to donate and get some of the water, they can have it. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like mass commercialization.
Well, on their part, it's not. But the people that he's saying, like Michael's saying, it's not. But it's the people that come in to visit that it's sort of. And I don't even know if this is a phrase. It's like self-inflicted consumerism, or like self-initiated community. So they're the ones who are making it they are making the whole thing a process of consumerization. The townfolk are trying to make a living, but it's the people that are visiting and spending the money and choosing to believe this stuff. They're the ones making it that way.
And also, like that, I guess a German couple or something, the round German couple that came to see Michael, they didn't believe, people only believe in something if they think they're paying for it. You know what I mean? So they didn't even want his water or to donate $5 for his water, and they asked if it will keep them safe. It's like, it's just a souvenir. You know what I mean? Talk to me about a second about this visit that John has with Isaac. What do you think about John so far?
Well, it was slightly put me off because the actor. Do you know if this actor's been in anything else?
I'm sure he has, but I couldn't name it off the top of my head.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Job.
Yeah, I was trying a bit too hard to place him.
I know his name's Kevin Carroll, and he's really good because this John guy is really scary.
Well, yeah. Well,
he's like a family man, and he's very threatening, but also very fake nice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk more about that, but in terms of the actual visit itself, so just that kind of that scene where John goes and gets the reading. As of now, when I was watching that, I was on John's side. Like, as a viewer, I want to know what these people are playing at by trying to make money off this stuff when it's pretty clear to, well, not pretty clear, but it's to us as a viewer, we're skeptical and we're not so sure that it is what it is. And so we see John in like a positive light. And so far, it seems then we've set him up in the family scene, that he's a family man. He seems to be running a pretty happy household. And then he goes out and he's like a straight talker, and he's the deliverer of, he's delivering common sense and speaking to our minds. And so we're so far, fairly on his side. And I do think that this is important so that what comes later comes with more of an impact, because we've already, these scenes have done a good job of establishing him as somebody we can get behind and understand. So yeah, that was what I had about that.
My bad, I skipped ahead. All right, so we see them do the chorus. They sing the song.
Yeah,
that basically explains what's happening in Miracle.
And that song, I don't know if you felt the same way, but when when you're watching that, it's so annoying. Like they just seem so stuck up. And
Do they seem stuck up? The girls
they
seem
do.
stuck up, you think? Okay.
I don't know. They do. I mean, you read those lyrics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It just seems, a little hypocritical that they're talking about what a tragedy it is when they've not. I know, but they didn't experience it, and they're saying like, they're talking about what a terrible event it was, but can they really understand that without being a part of it? And like, they don't know if they're special. They think they're special, but has it not occurred to them that it could be random? Why are they so sure that they're special? I don't see how they can be that sure. And I don't know, you just get this vibe, and it's a vibe you often get in TV and film when we're presented with this perfect town kind of trope, and we see these, like, often in horror films or darker thrillers, and it's these places that seem perfect on the outset, but the more perfect they seem, almost it's the reverse. So like, the more perfect they seem, the worse they actually are on like the underbelly. And those were some of the vibes I was getting from like this song. Just, it was so, I don't know, it was kind of creepy as well. Maybe I'm reading too much, but that song was like, it didn't make me like them anymore. Like, okay, we get it. You've been fortunate. You've done well for yourself out of this event, and that's pretty rare. But you don't need to keep rubbing it in our faces like with songs. Like, come on.
Well, and I also think it's a thing. It's like, if you're not hanging out there all the time, you're not hearing about it all the time. But if you're there all the time, it's all you're hearing about. You know what I mean? So after the chorus, we get this shot of the girls running naked through the forest. Thoughts?
Confusion.
Yeah. Let's move on. John and Evie play a fierce game of catch, and Evie tells a joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Broken pencil. Broken pencil who? Never mind. It's pointless. That's a good one. That's a hashtag dad jokes or rad jokes.
It was okay.
It? Yeah, it was okay. All right. So John goes to work at the firehouse. This will be a level 5, which is new to the other firemen. When pushed on it, John says he's selling a lie and folks are buying it. We see John lead the firemen to Isaac's house. He is thrown out of the house, and the house is burned down by the firemen. Isaac says, I don't understand. John says, you do understand. And John puts on a fire hat that says Captain. So I guess this is what you're talking about now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This moment definitely hits harder.
I got from this the first time I watched it that he's the fire captain in the town. But the fire captain, the job duties are also long in a bulleted list that also has to do with maybe keeping certain people out of town. That's what I took from it. At Erika's clinic, Isaac lets Erika know that his house was burned down, and he meant what he said, and there's no way to avoid it. And I guess that means by telling John that something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I took.
Anything about that whole night with the fire and seeing Erika before I move on?
Yeah, well, I'd made a note, and I can't remember if it was based on that scene between Erika, but this is like, well, we know it's the first. Well, we don't know, but it's probably the first one of this like scale, right? Because they were surprised when he said a 5, so we can assume this is a fairly
they made it pretty clear this was the first time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was what I was wondering.
Okay. The next morning, Erika puts in her hearing aid and goes for a run. She runs to the forest where she digs up a box and opens it to find a baby bird that flies away. Thoughts? It's going to be a big thoughts season.
Well, it is weird. I didn't know if she even had a hearing aid until this scene. So the fact that they did that made me notice. So I'm assuming there's a reason that I'm suddenly noticing she has a hearing aid, unless they really just want to go the extra mile and add those kind of intricate day-to-day details in.
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of character flavor too. You know, we're kind of world building here, so there's lots of little things. You know.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the show Master of None?
I watched like the first season.
Yeah. I think it happened in the first season. There's like an episode where, like half the episode, they just follow around like a deaf girl, and it's just completely silent. Did you see that one?
I think so, but it was a very long time ago.
Well, I mean, that's why I know, obviously, it's obvious when I'm saying it now that there's a link because they're both deaf, but having that silence in, like, there's no music, no kind of audio, and then it sort of comes in as they put the hearing aid on. It's always a nice touch, and it was done really well in Master of None, so that's why it reminded me of that. Sorry, going on off on a tangent then.
But was there a scene this time where they did that? I didn't notice that.
Well, it was when she got out of bed, right? And it was, as far as I know, there was no sound until she put in the hearing aid.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was the point of the scene.
Okay.
Maybe review that, one of us. Yeah, go on. I
was just going to go on. Now, this next part is, well, this is fun because this is one of the episodes I made Benji watch with me. I made you watch it with me. And, you know, I felt like through this first 45 minutes, it was a real slog for you. Like, okay, there's a lot of new things happening. I don't know what's going on. We had this prehistoric situation, or future situation. We have this whole new set of people. We don't know anything except that a departure did happen, and we're in this weird place where none of them went down. So, I'll just go into the next part. At home, while John continues to look for the cricket and lets Erika know he's going to church. At church, Michael gives a sermon that ends with, "We are the 9,261 and we are spared." And then the Reverend introduces his substitute as he's going away for surgery. It is Matt Jameson. This is where I saw Benji's face light up. I've never seen such a light in a man's face before. It's Matt Jameson from Mapleton with his wife, Mary. And as Matt starts to speak, he is unexpectedly cut off by the minister, who notices John in attendance. John tries to catch up with Matt on the way out, but doesn't find out what Matt was going to say. So we have our first connection to the first season and characters of The Leftovers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I was just worried the first, like, half hour or so, because, you know, I could tell they were doing a good job of building these guys up, and it was going to be an interesting story. And so I was, you know, settling in for the long ride of these guys, because I could tell it's not like they were just going to do a single episode study on them. The stuff they were setting up was going to be resolved over many episodes. So I knew we were going to be in this town for a little while, which was, you know, it was okay because it's exciting to be in a new place, new characters, find out this new stuff. But at the same time, the whole reason we've loved The Leftovers so much is because of these characters. You know, Matt Jameson, Kevin, Jill, Nora, all these guys. Like, that is The Leftovers. So I was just a little bit worried. I was like, okay, how many? Because, you know, it's a 3-season show, and season 1's done, so we've got 2 seasons left. And then if we suddenly feel like we're spending all of season 2 in this town and we don't get to see the guys it's like, oh, we've only got 1 more season with them. So when we see Matt come in, that for me was like the moment where I was so relieved, because I was like, okay, we're going to be getting more Kevin this season. Like, if we're seeing Matt, we're going to be seeing Kevin. They tend to come in pairs. Yeah, so that was why I was so kind of relieved at that. I was like, yes. So it's like the best of both worlds, right? We get these new situation, new characters, and we get all the benefits of that. Plus, we get all the benefits of the guys that we know and love being in that new situation. So it was, it was a good moment.
And, you know, and here now we see John in full force menace, right? What I was talking about before. We have the information that he's a family man. We have the information that he burns down houses. and he comes and he's looking for trouble. And man, the eyes he puts on Matt, right? And he's gonna give a speech about Mary, and when they got there, and he is cut off because the Reverend knows, John is eyeballing you. So I'm stopping this right now, whatever Matt was going to say. So after church, the Murphys go to a restaurant where bacon, where John needs his bacon on a separate plate, which is understandable because, you don't want your bacon unclean with other animals, right? And they're witness to Jerry, who comes into the diner and sacrifices a goat right there on the floor. He's not stopped, and even some people take pictures.
Gee, Jerry. Have you ever seen Parks and Recreation?
Oh, yeah. That's not little Sebastian. Are you talking about little Sebastian, or are you talking about
I was talking about Jerry.
Parks and Recreation?
I didn't even make a little Sebastian connection.
I actually started watching Parks and Rec with my son.
Oh, really?
Some things are
such a good show.
Some things are so inappropriate.
Like when they kill little Sebastian.
Spoilers.
No, they don't. No, yeah, that was why, I don't know, when they said Jerry, kind of took me out with the immersion. I was like, this does seem like a kind of Jerry thing to do, accidentally kill a goat in a restaurant.
Well, it seemed like this guy had more purpose than Jerry from Parks and Rec ever did.
Well, I mean, Jerry would accidentally kill the goat. Is right. How that would work.
But this guy comes in and he's got the plastic sheet, right? And everybody knows what's going to happen. And he doesn't even usually use the full plastic sheet. It's only there so he can drag the goat out, and they let the restaurant take care of the blood. And the Murphys are like, ugh, right?
Yeah.
And everyone else seems to be like, okay, this is cool. And that's just another weird thing, like the bride and the dress and the crack in the asphalt.
Well, I mean, it's biblical as well, right? If you're sacrificing a goat, that's pretty. That's a lot of biblical connotations to that. There's got to be, right?
This is the leftovers, so it might as well be called biblical connotations.
Right.
Okay. So last season we talked a lot about Job. This year, we got goats and lots of things. And I don't even know what Mike read in the church, but we'll get into more some of that later on, I think. So while watching the news show at home later that evening, John is watching a show that exposes one of the stars of Perfect Strangers and his story of departure fraud, which is funny, right? Funny callback.
Yeah.
John loses a spoon down the disposable and is deathly afraid of trying to get it out. That was a deep, deep fear. Michael comes along and gets it for him, and John is relieved. Michael tells John he's going to feed the man in the tower. After he rides through an almost hostile police environment where people are trying to get into town, he goes to an old house covered in Christmas lights and asks the man inside if he would like to pray, and the man says, okay. And I don't know if there's much to say. It's just more weird stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
The next day, someone has left a pie on the Murphys' front door. As John studies the pie, he sees a new family move in from next door. It's the Garveys, Kevin, Nora, Jill, and Lily. Again, I see Benji light up like the aforementioned Christmas tree.
Yeah. Well, I was just so worried that we would have an episode without Kevin in. But it was, it was a real fear. It was, we talked about John's real fear of the spoon from the guards, but it was worse than that.
It was worse than that. You were like, oh my God,
Kevin.
I'm not going to be able to see the chiseled abs of Kevin Garvey. That's how I felt about it anyway. When I make my Kevin Garvey Legos, which I will show you in time, I find my Batman torso because Lego Batman has a 9-pack. I'll show you that later. Now, Erika questions why someone will leave them a pie. Is it poison? John thinks that it might be, so he takes it over to give it to the Garveys because he's working on this double level of trying to figure out, why are you moving into my town? How'd you get this house? What's your deal? So he decides to invite the Garveys over that night for John's birthday barbecue. And Erika questions why he would want to work on his birthday. And he says with a big smile, I'm just being neighborly.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of weird, though, because we know his job's, or at least his job seems to be, he's like a firefighter, right? So working, obviously his job must include more than just putting out fires.
Well, like I was saying before, I think his job is unofficial town protector that will do the dirty work. Right? So, and they wanted to give him a salary. I'm just guessing here, and they wanted to give him a salary and a title, so they made him captain of the firehouse, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of thing. It's almost like a secret mafia type deal. He invites Nora over and meets Lily. The Garveys come over for the barbecue. Evie is planning on going out later. During dinner, the families discuss why the Garveys have an African-American baby and that Jill isn't Nora's but Kevin's secret to looking so good as moisturizing. Also, it's discovered that Nora is Matt's sister. Kevin is distracted as John questions him calmly inside. Outside, after Erika's story about the kids in the overflowing bathtub, we learn that John was away in jail for attempted murder. He also is unapologetic about his crime. While bringing out a birthday cake, Evie zones out and drops the cake. We find out that Evie has epilepsy, and she can black out if she doesn't keep her medicine schedule. Evie gives her father a present, and the girls drive off. What do you think about this meeting of the Garveys and the Murphys?
I don't
Kevin,
know.
what do you think of anyone's behavior? I mean, we know what John's after. John is trying to,
Well, yeah. I mean, one part that confused me a little bit was Kevin's fascination with a sofa, right? And he's just like staring at a sofa. And then he says it was because he used to have one just like that. Is that what he said?
Yep, he said he used to have one just like it. So, I said here Kevin's being distracted. He's pretty distracted. And we haven't seen them at all since they found Lily on the doorstep. We don't know what's going on and how they got here. So we have a lot of questions at this point, right?
Yeah. And
Okay, cool.
the whole scene is like, it's a weird, you're kind of pitting these two macho, if you like, figures against each other. We've seen Kevin's kind of like the protector of his town, and John is apparently the protector of his town. So we have these sort of two kind of very alike in some ways characters clashing. And no, not exactly clashing. They seem to be getting on okay so far, but there is definitely that undercurrent, and it is interesting that they are both so similar in terms of they are the people responsible for their town's safety and protection, even though they go about it in very different ways.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's right, especially when he says, I can't wait to get to know you better, Kevin. You know what I mean? It's just like it sets up this thing that, we know is going to be a thing. We know there's going to be some tension there. In the middle of the night, there's an earthquake, like the one in the beginning. And Evie is discovered missing after a few phone calls to discover that her friends are also missing. Michael and Kevin drive to the lake and find the lake drained and the girls' car with their things still inside, including Evie's phone. Erika sits at home and worries. And that's the end of the episode. Girls are gone. So that may be the bad thing that Isaac was warning him about.
Maybe.
Yep.
Maybe.
So it kind of sets up the season a little bit here. We're in a new spot, and I'm really excited to get into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, before we finish, we're going to talk a little bit about this final bit with the girls going missing and the events that go down right at the end.
Sure.
Well, there's a couple of things. One of them But you know my fascination with Apple products throughout the show, and when John, when John's calling Erika, he looks like he's running on a pretty recent iOS, on maybe like a 6S or something, and
iOS Gate is back, everybody. iOS Gate is here.
He seems to have very up-to-date iOS that's identical to the same iOS many of us will use. And I just thought it was interesting that, according to the show, Apple's development timeline is impacted 0% by the events of the departure. So they somehow managed to get through the departure without that having an impact on their business and their business moving forward. And I know that's obviously, they didn't really have, obviously that's not how it is, because they had to use those. They couldn't change those Apple products because it's a TV show, and that's just what we have. But it is kind of interesting when you think about the connotations of that in world, that Apple somehow was one of the only companies not disrupted by this event, because they seem to have followed the exact same path that they would have if it hadn't happened.
Do you think Tim Cook departed and they got someone more efficient in there?
Well, I don't know. He can't have, because if Tim Cook had gone, then there would have been this whole knock on, butterflies' wings, and the iOS may have looked completely different by this point. So my money's on Apple. Apple is miracle. nobody left. Nobody departed out of Apple. That must be it.
And what else? Did you see anything else?
Yeah, no, that wasn't what I took away from this whole scene. I mean, it was actually, but there was other stuff as well. Well, the water draining, that was interesting. And it sort of made me, well, it didn't at the time, but then when you were just talking about it a minute before, it did make me realize it's kind of the opposite, or, some kind of weird mirror of that story that the mum tells about the kids in the bathtubs and the water draining out. Lo and behold, the water's drained out of this lake. So there was definitely a little something going on there.
That's good. Every time we do this, I just want to watch the next episode so bad. Yeah. There's parallels everywhere.
And there was one. Sorry. I mean, this is going way back, kind of out of place, but I forgot to mention at the time, when Michael delivers that food to the guy and he offers to pray, when it kind of zooms out and cuts to the next scene, do we see for like a brief moment that there's like a quarantine label, quarantine maybe, kind of label on his house? Is that what that is?
On whose house?
The guy that Michael visits.
Is it a sticker?
It looks like, I don't know, it looks like orange, and it has the letters like INE, so I kind of jumped to quarantine. I'll send you the picture.
No, it's okay. You don't need to. I believe episode 4 of this season is called Orange Sticker.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so I think that might be answered for you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, in the hopes that we can totally be slackers in our real life, I'm going to end this now and say thanks for talking to me. I can't wait to watch the next one. I have a firm schedule of the episodes in this season I want to watch with you.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, but a lot of them. So hopefully we can do that. We've got a lot of stuff set up, so thanks for doing it.
Okay, that's great.
All right, talk to you soon.
See ya.